How do you lose your wedding rings, Beth? That's how it all started. She stood there in the kitchen, her face barely showing a flicker of concern. I don't know, John. They probably slipped off when I was at yoga. She shrugged it off like it was nothing, like the symbol of our marriage wasn't worth a second thought. And I really tried, to believe her. But something about the way she said it felt wrong, too casual. Too easy. But I didn't press her. I let it slide. Maybe I didn't want to believe what my gut was telling me, that something was off. It wasn't until 2 days later, when I found that used rubber in the back seat of her car, that everything came crashing down. That's when I knew. It was still there, shoved into the corner like an afterthought, as if whoever had used it couldn't be bothered to even hide the evidence. My heart dropped. My stomach churned. I stared at it for a full minute, hoping it wasn't real, hoping it was some twisted joke. But no. It was there. And with it, the reality of what I had been denying for weeks. Beth was cheating on me. That night, as she slept beside me, I lay there staring at the ceiling, knowing I had to do something. I wasn't going to let her continue lying to my face. I wasn't going to let her pretend that everything was fine. But I needed proof. Cold, hard proof. And that's when I decided to hire a private investigator. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Stay tuned, because this is where the real story begins. 1 week. That's all it took for Tom, the private investigator, to come back with answers. I hadn't slept much since finding that rubber in Beth's car. Every night, she climbed into bed next to me, pretending like nothing had changed, while my mind was spinning out of control. I replayed every excuse she'd given me over the past few months, late nights at work, yoga classes that suddenly took 2 hours, girls' weekends that seemed a little too frequent. How had I missed it? Or maybe, deep down, I didn't want to see it. When Tom called me in, I wasn't ready. I told myself I was, but my gut was twisted into knots. I could feel the blood pumping in my temples as I pulled into his office parking lot. There was no turning back now. I had asked for the truth, and I was about to get it, whether I liked it or not. I sat down in his office, and without a word, Tom slid a folder across the table toward me. It was thick. Too thick. My hands shook as I reached for it, but I couldn't bring myself to open it. Take a deep breath, Tom said, his voice calm, almost detached. This was just another day for him, another client, another cheating spouse. For me, though, this was the end of life as I knew it. I opened the folder. The first photo hit me like a punch to the stomach. There she was, Beth, laughing, smiling, her hand on the arm of a man I didn't know. And not just any man. No, this guy looked like something out of a fitness magazine, all muscles and charm. They were outside a restaurant, leaning close, their faces inches apart. But that wasn't the worst part. It got worse. The next few photos told me everything I needed to know. A hotel room. Her car parked outside. Them walking in, hand in hand. The timestamps on the photos showed it wasn't just once, either. This had been going on for months. I felt like I was watching my life shatter in slow motion. The anger surged through me, hot and sharp, but there was also something else, sadness. Deep, overwhelming sadness. This was the woman I had trusted, the woman I had loved. And she had been lying to my face, night after night, all while playing house with some guy named Jared. Tom spoke again, pulling me back into the moment. She's been meeting him at the same hotel every week. It started 6 months ago, right around the time she started telling you about her networking events. 6 months. Half a year of betrayal. Of coming home to me, kissing me, looking me in the eye, and lying. I stared at the photos, numb, trying to process it all. But there was no processing it. There was only one thing left to do now. I wasn't going to sit by and let her get away with this. As I walked out of Tom's office, I knew what my next move had to be. I was going to confront her, but not before I had a plan. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I wasn't going to let her make excuses or turn the tables on me. No, I was going to take her down. And I was going to make sure she never saw it coming. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay there, wide awake, while Beth slept next to me, unaware of what was coming. My mind was racing with everything I had seen, every photo burned into my brain. I kept picturing her in that hotel with Jared, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world, like I didn't exist. I knew I couldn't hold it in much longer. The anger was building inside me like a volcano, ready to erupt. I wasn't sure how I'd stay calm once I finally confronted her, but I needed to stay in control. I had to do this right. The next morning, I waited. I watched her go through her usual routine, completely unaware that I knew everything. She smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, and made herself a cup of coffee like it was just another day. It made me sick. After breakfast, when she was about to head out, probably to meet him, I decided it was time. I leaned against the kitchen counter, blocking her way to the door. "Beth, we need to talk." She stopped, her hand on the doorknob. For a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? I wasn't sure, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. She turned to me with that same fake smile she always used when she was lying. "What's up, babe? I'm kind of in a rush." I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at her, feeling the rage simmering just beneath the surface. "Where are you going?" Her smile faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered. "I told you, I'm meeting Sarah for brunch. We've had this planned for weeks." Sarah. Another lie. I knew exactly where she was going. "Don't lie to me, Beth." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. But she wasn't going to give up that easily. Beth was a master manipulator, and I knew she'd try to worm her way out of this. "I'm not lying, John. Why would you even?" I cut her off, my voice cold and hard. "I hired a private investigator." Her mouth snapped shut, and all the color drained from her face. There it was, the truth finally hitting her. She knew the game was up. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the weight of my words hanging in the air. I watched her try to piece together a response, try to find a way out, but there wasn't one. Not this time. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaky. "John. I can explain." "Explain?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just bitterness. "Explain what, Beth? That you've been screwing some guy behind my back for months? That you lied to me, over and over again? What exactly is there to explain?" She opened her mouth to speak, but I wasn't finished. The anger was spilling out now, and I couldn't stop it. "Do you think I'm stupid? I saw the pictures, Beth. I know about Jared. I know about the hotel. I know everything." Her face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw her start to crack. She looked like a cornered animal, desperate to escape. But instead of guilt or apology, she went straight into defense mode. "John, it's not what you think," she cried, her voice rising with panic. "It was a mistake, just a stupid mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." "A mistake?" I repeated, my voice thick with disbelief. "A mistake doesn't last 6 months, Beth. A mistake doesn't involve weekly trips to a hotel." She was silent, her eyes wide, tears beginning to form. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. The sadness I'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by a cold, hollow anger. "I trusted you," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I loved you. And you threw it all away for, what? Some guy who doesn't give a damn about you? For a fling? Beth's tears finally started to fall, but I wasn't sure if they were real or just another part of her act. She stepped toward me, reaching out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Please, John, she begged. We can work through this. I love you. It didn't mean anything. I was just. Stop. I cut her off, shaking my head. Don't even say it. Don't insult me with that garbage. She froze, her hand still reaching for me, but I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this. You want to fix this? I said, my voice low. You want me to believe you still care about us? Then why don't you start by telling me the truth for once in your life? Beth was caught. The lies had unraveled, and now it was time for her to face the music. But even I didn't realize how twisted things would get from here. Beth stood frozen in front of me, her eyes filled with crocodile tears, but I could see through it now. The act, the excuses, the fake remorse, it was all part of the same game she'd been playing for months. But this time, the stakes were higher, and she was losing. Big time. I'm telling you the truth now, she whispered, her voice shaky. I swear, John, it was a mistake. I was feeling lost, and Jared, he was just there. It didn't mean anything. I laughed again, that same bitter laugh that seemed to rise out of me without permission. Didn't mean anything? You were with him for 6 months, Beth. 6 months of sneaking around, lying to my face, and you're trying to tell me it was just a meaningless fling? She wiped her tears, but it felt like more of a performance than anything real. You weren't there for me. You were always working late, always busy with something else. I felt invisible. There it was, the classic move. Blame me. Turn the tables. Make me the reason for her betrayal. I should have seen it coming. So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You felt invisible, so you decided the best way to solve that problem was to cheat on me. With some random guy who works at a tech firm. That makes sense. Her face twisted, and for a second, I saw the real Beth, the one underneath the lies and manipulations. The one who didn't like being caught, who didn't like losing control. But she quickly covered it up with more tears. I didn't plan for it to happen, John, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought about stopping, I really did, but... But what? I interrupted, feeling my patience wear thin. You didn't because you liked it? Because it was easier than being honest with me? Or because you thought I'd never find out? She winced at that, and I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to find a way to salvage this, to make herself the victim. But I wasn't letting her off the hook. Don't you dare try to put this on me, Beth, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I've been here. I've always been here. I'm the one who worked late to provide for us, to make sure we had a good life. I'm the one who trusted you, who believed in you. And you repay me by crawling into bed with someone else? She didn't have an answer to that, so she did what she always did when she was cornered, she lied. I ended it with Jared, she blurted out suddenly, as if that would make everything better. It's over. I swear, it's over. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because according to the investigator, you were with him just last week. The color drained from her face again. She knew she was caught, and she didn't have a way out. But instead of coming clean, she doubled down. Okay, fine, she snapped, her tone shifting from pleading to defensive. Yes, I saw him last week. But that was the last time. I told him it was over. I didn't know how to tell you. I stared at her, shaking my head in disbelief. Do you even hear yourself, Beth? You're still lying. You can't stop, can you? Even now, when everything's out in the open, you're still trying to twist the story to make yourself look better. She crossed her arms, her tears gone now, replaced by a cold defiance. I'm not lying, John. I'm telling you the truth. I stepped closer, my voice deadly calm. You want me to believe you? Then show me your phone. Her eyes widened in panic. What? Why? Because I know you're still talking to him, I said, holding out my hand. If you're really done with him, then you won't have a problem showing me. For a long moment, she stood there, staring at me, her body tense. I could see the internal battle playing out in her mind. She knew if she handed me that phone, it was game over. The final nail in the coffin of her lies. But she didn't move. That's what I thought, I said, my voice cold. You're not done with him. You're not even close. You never were. Beth's lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time, she didn't try to argue. She didn't try to explain it away. She just stood there, her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, fear. I trusted you, Beth, I said quietly, feeling the weight of the words as I spoke them. I gave you everything. And you threw it all away for, what? A thrill? A guy who won't even care about you in a few months? Was it worth it? She didn't answer. She couldn't. I'm done, I said, turning away from her. I'm not going to live like this anymore. I walked out of the house, leaving Beth standing in the kitchen, her lies finally crumbling around her. But I knew this was only the beginning. I wasn't just going to walk away without a fight. I had a lawyer lined up, and I was ready to take her down in court. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to lose everything. As I drove away from the house, my hands gripping the steering wheel tight enough to turn my knuckles white, I felt a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Betrayal, anger, and disgust, mostly at Beth, but also at myself. How had I let this go on for so long? How had I missed the signs? But now wasn't the time to wallow in self-pity. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Beth might have thought she could weasel her way out of it with her tears and her pathetic excuses, but I wasn't going to make it easy for her. No, I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of pain that she had inflicted on me. She'd taken my trust, my loyalty, and crushed them beneath her feet. Now, it was time for her to face the consequences. I had already made the call to a lawyer the day after the private investigator handed me the photos. His name was David Calloway, and his reputation was as ruthless as they came. He was the kind of guy who didn't just win cases, he demolished his opposition, leaving nothing but scorched earth behind. Exactly what I needed. I arrived at David's office later that afternoon. It was a sleek, modern space, with polished floors and walls lined with expensive-looking artwork. The kind of place that made it clear this guy didn't come cheap. But I didn't care about the money. If anyone could help me tear Beth's world apart, it was him. David sat behind his desk when I walked in, a sharp-looking man in his early 40s with a well-tailored suit and a look of quiet confidence. He gestured for me to sit down, and I did, the photos from the PI burning a hole in the folder I held. John, right? He said, offering a handshake that felt more like a formality than a welcome. Let's get straight to it. What's the situation? I placed the folder on the desk and pushed it toward him. My wife's been cheating on me for 6 months. I've got evidence, photos, locations, the whole deal. I want a divorce, and I want to make sure she pays for what she's done. David didn't even blink. He opened the folder, glancing at the photos without much of a reaction, then looked back at me. Okay. We can work with this. First off, I'm sorry you're going through this. It's rough, but we'll make sure you come out on top. From what I can see here, you've got a strong case. Infidelity is always messy in court, but with evidence this solid, she doesn't stand a chance. Hearing those words gave me a strange sense of relief. For the first time in days, I felt like I had some control over the situation. Like I could actually do something about it. David continued, laying out the options. We're going to hit her hard, he said, his voice calm but firm. You'll want to file for divorce immediately, and with the evidence of her affair, we can push for a favorable settlement. Depending on the assets, we can make sure you walk away with more than your fair share. And if she tries to fight it? Well, we'll be ready for that too. I nodded, taking it all in. I don't want her to get anything, I said, the anger bubbling back up. Not after what she's done. David leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. We'll do our best to make that happen. But remember, divorce courts can be unpredictable, especially when emotions are involved. If she's as manipulative as you say, she might try to play the victim card, claim she was neglected, or that the marriage was falling apart long before the affair. We'll need to stay one step ahead of her. The thought of Beth standing in court, playing the innocent wife, trying to twist everything to make herself look like the victim, made my blood boil. But I trusted David. He was sharp, calculating, and he wasn't going to let her get away with it. I'll take care of everything, he said, his tone reassuring. All you need to do is make sure you're ready for a fight. This could get ugly. I'm ready, I replied, my voice steady. I didn't care how ugly it got. I was ready to drag Beth through the mud if that's what it took. David nodded. Good. We'll start by filing for divorce and serving her the papers. After that, we'll see how she reacts. If she's smart, she'll try to settle. If not, well, we'll be prepared. I left David's office feeling a strange sense of empowerment. This wasn't just about the divorce anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, about making sure Beth paid for every lie she told, every night she spent with Jared while I sat at home like a fool. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. When I got home, Beth was already there, sitting on the couch, her face tear-streaked and desperate. She must have realized something was wrong when I hadn't come back right away. She jumped up as soon as she saw me. John, please, we need to talk, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I made a mistake, but I love you. We can fix this, we can go to counseling, we can. No, Beth, I cut her off, my voice cold and firm. We can't fix this. Her face fell, and I could see the fear creeping back in. She knew what was coming. She knew this wasn't just a fight she could talk her way out of. I pulled the divorce papers out of my jacket pocket and dropped them on the table in front of her. It's over, I said, turning and walking away without another word. But I wasn't done yet. The real fight was just beginning, and Beth was about to realize that she wasn't the only one who could play dirty. Keep watching, there's more to come. The next morning, Beth was gone when I woke up. The house felt eerily quiet, the kind of silence that presses on your chest, heavy and suffocating. Part of me wondered if she had left for good, maybe gone to Jared, or simply to escape the situation. But I knew better than to assume anything with Beth. She wasn't the type to go down without a fight. And sure enough, by midday, my phone buzzed with a text from her. We need to talk. Please, John. Let's meet at the coffee shop this afternoon. I stared at the message, my stomach twisting. What was the point? We'd already said everything there was to say, or at least, I had. But knowing Beth, she had more lies, more manipulations up her sleeve, and she wasn't done trying to claw her way out of this mess. I debated ignoring her, but something inside me wanted to face her one last time. I wanted to see what excuse she would come up with next, what sob story she'd spin this time. So, I agreed. I figured if nothing else, it would give me some satisfaction to watch her squirm, knowing the end was inevitable. When I arrived at the coffee shop, she was already there, sitting at a small table in the corner, nervously stirring a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking. She looked different, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. But I wasn't buying it. Not after everything. I sat down across from her without saying a word, just watching her fidget, waiting for her to speak first. "John," she started, her voice soft, almost trembling. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I need you to understand that I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I was lost. I didn't know how to handle things, and Jared, it just happened. I swear, I never meant to hurt you." Her eyes were wide, pleading, but I could see the cracks in her facade. This was Beth's last attempt at control, at twisting the narrative to make herself look like the victim. But it wasn't going to work. Not this time. "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I repeated, my voice low and controlled. "Beth, you knew exactly what you were doing. Every single time you snuck out to meet him, you made a choice. And now you're trying to make it seem like you were just lost? Don't insult me." She flinched at my words, but the tears didn't stop. They never did. "I know I messed up," she whispered. "But John, we can get through this. We've been through so much together. Don't throw it all away because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I said, laughing bitterly. "It wasn't one mistake, Beth. It was 6 months of lies, of betrayal. And you didn't stop. You kept going, knowing exactly what you were doing. So don't stand there and pretend it's something we can just sweep under the rug." I could see the panic rising in her eyes. She wasn't used to me being this direct, this unyielding. In the past, I'd always been the one to bend, to forgive, to smooth things over. But I wasn't that guy anymore. Not after what she'd done. "John, please," she begged, reaching across the table to grab my hand. I pulled away, not even wanting her touch anymore. It felt like poison. "I've already filed the divorce papers," I said bluntly, watching her reaction. "There's nothing left to talk about." Her face went pale, and for a moment, she looked genuinely scared. "Divorce?" she whispered, as if she hadn't expected it to go that far. "John, you don't mean that. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can." "I don't want to fix it, Beth," I interrupted, my voice ice cold. "I don't want counseling, and I don't want to work through anything. I want out. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." Her hand started to shake, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not just fear of losing me, but fear of losing everything, our life, the house, the money, her reputation. She had never thought it would come to this. She'd always had control, always been able to manipulate her way out of situations. But not this time. "Please, John," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll do anything. Just, please don't leave me. I'll stop seeing Jared, I'll prove it to you. We can start over." It was pathetic, really. Watching her scramble for some kind of lifeline, trying to salvage what she'd destroyed. But there was no going back. Not now, not ever. "You should have thought about that 6 months ago," I said, standing up from the table. "It's too late, Beth." She reached out again, but I was already walking away, leaving her sitting there in her own mess of lies and desperation. As I stepped outside into the cool afternoon air, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt free. I had made my decision, and I wasn't looking back. Later that evening, I sat with David Calloway, the lawyer, finalizing the divorce papers. Beth was going to fight, of course. She wasn't going to let me walk away without a battle. But I was ready for it. I had the evidence, the lawyer, and most importantly, the resolve to see this through. She wasn't going to take anything more from me. "Are you sure you're prepared for this?" David asked, eyeing me carefully. "Because once this goes to court, it's going to get ugly. She's going to pull every trick in the book." I nodded, meeting his gaze with determination. "I'm ready." She's not going to win this. But Beth wasn't done yet. Little did I know, her next move would be more desperate, and more dangerous, than I ever could have imagined. I thought Beth was done. I thought after that scene in the coffee shop, she'd finally accept it. That she'd realize she couldn't claw her way out of this one. But that's the thing about Beth, she never knew when to quit. And what came next? Well, it was something I never saw coming. A few days after I filed the divorce papers, things were strangely quiet. Too quiet. Beth hadn't called, texted, or shown up at the house since I handed her the papers. Part of me thought maybe she was finally giving up, maybe she was retreating into whatever twisted version of herself she could live with. But I should have known better. One night, I got home late from work, still trying to throw myself into anything that didn't remind me of the mess my life had become. The house was dark, and for a moment, the silence felt comforting. But as soon as I walked into the living room, I noticed something was off. The scent of her perfume hung faintly in the air. Beth had been there. My heart raced as I flicked on the lights, scanning the room. Nothing seemed out of place at first, no broken windows, no obvious sign of a break-in, but there was an unsettling feeling crawling up my spine. I checked the kitchen, the bedroom, and finally, the study. That's when I saw it. Everything on my desk had been rifled through, papers scattered, files opened, drawers left ajar. And in the middle of the chaos, the divorce documents were lying out in the open, ripped apart. Shredded, like they meant nothing. She'd found a way to get in, probably still had a key I forgot to change, and now she was making her point. The rage I'd felt before came surging back, but this time it wasn't just anger, it was something darker. I was tired of her games, tired of her thinking she could waltz in and out of my life as she pleased. I grabbed my phone, ready to call her, to confront her for the 100th time. But just as I was about to dial, I got a text. It wasn't from Beth, it was from an unknown number. And the message? It chilled me to the bone. You think you can just walk away from me? Watch what happens next. My hands clenched around the phone. It didn't take a genius to figure out who sent it. Beth was spiraling, and she was about to take things to a whole new level of crazy. I should have been afraid, maybe I was on some level, but mostly, I was furious. She was threatening me now. After everything she'd done. I called David, my lawyer, immediately. She's not done, I said, pacing the room as I explained what had happened. She broke into the house. She trashed my papers. And now she's sending threats. David didn't sound surprised, but he was dead serious. We need to take this to the next level. Restraining order. Now. A restraining order? I repeated, feeling like this was escalating faster than I could keep up. You think she's really dangerous? John, when people are desperate, they do stupid things, David said, his tone grave. You said it yourself, she's losing control, and she's not handling it well. If she's breaking into your house and sending threats, she's already crossed a line. You need to protect yourself. He was right, of course. Beth had already proven she wasn't playing by the rules. And the thought of her continuing to invade my life like this, coming into my home, tearing through my things, made my skin crawl. This wasn't just about the divorce anymore. It was about my safety, my sanity. File the papers for the restraining order, I said, feeling the weight of the situation settle on my shoulders. Do whatever it takes. The next few days were tense. I had the locks changed, installed new security cameras, and made sure David had all the documents ready to file for the restraining order. But Beth didn't back down. The texts kept coming, each one more unsettling than the last. You can't get rid of me, John. You think a lawyer can stop me? Watch what happens next. She was unraveling, and I could feel her slipping further into desperation. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a sickening twist in my gut, wondering what she would try next. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for her to show up, to escalate things even further. Then, one night, it happened. I came home late, again, exhausted from another long day of trying to pretend like my life wasn't falling apart. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw her. Beth. Sitting on the front steps of the house, her eyes wild, her hair a mess, like she hadn't slept in days. "What are you doing here?" I snapped as I got out of the car, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "You're not supposed to be here." She stood up, swaying slightly, a manic smile plastered across her face. "Oh, I'm not allowed in my own house now? Is that it, John? You think you can just kick me out and move on? You think a piece of paper is going to stop me?" Her voice was sharp, venomous. She wasn't the same Beth anymore, not the one I'd married, not the one I'd loved. This was someone else, someone unhinged. "You need to leave," I said, stepping toward her, trying to stay calm. "If you don't leave, I'll call the police." "The police?" She laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh I'd heard from her before. It was cold, almost hysterical. "You think I care about the police, John? You think they can stop me?" She stepped closer, and for the first time, I felt a real wave of fear wash over me. This wasn't just a desperate woman, this was someone who had lost all sense of reality. Someone who was ready to do anything to get what she wanted. I took a step back, reaching for my phone, ready to make good on my threat. But before I could dial, she lunged at me, grabbing my arm with a grip that was stronger than I expected. Her eyes were wild, her voice a low hiss. "If I can't have you, John," she whispered, her breath hot against my face, "then no one will." That was the moment I realized just how far Beth was willing to go. She wasn't just playing games anymore, this was real. And I wasn't sure how I was going to stop her. But one thing was clear, I was in danger, and the storm was far from over. Beth's words echoed in my ears, her grip still tight on my arm as her wild eyes bore into mine. "If I can't have you, then no one will." For a moment, everything slowed down, the world around me felt surreal, as if I was watching a nightmare unfold in slow motion. But this wasn't a nightmare. It was my life. I yanked my arm free, heart pounding, adrenaline kicking in. This wasn't the woman I had married, this was someone unrecognizable, someone dangerous. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, to put distance between us, but she was blocking the door, her body trembling with rage. "You're out of your mind, Beth," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You need help." Her face twisted into a sneer. "Help? You think I'm crazy? You think you can just file some papers and throw me away like trash?" She took another step toward me, her hands shaking, but I could see the desperation behind her fury. This was her last stand. Her final attempt to control something that had slipped through her fingers long ago. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, even as fear coiled tighter in my chest. "This isn't going to end well for you, Beth. You need to leave before things get worse." She laughed again, that same unsettling, hollow laugh, and then did something I didn't expect. She pulled out her phone and held it up, recording me. "Worse? You think it can get worse? Let's see how the world reacts when they see this. Poor John, the victim of a crazy wife. Who's going to believe you when I show them this?" She was unraveling fast, and I realized she wasn't just trying to hurt me physically, she was trying to ruin everything. My reputation, my life. She wanted to drag me down into the chaos with her. I reached for my own phone, dialing David, my lawyer, as I backed away slowly. The tension between us was a live wire, and I didn't know what Beth would do next. But I wasn't going to stick around to find out. "John," she screamed, her voice cracking with emotion. "Don't walk away from me. You can't just. The sirens. The sound of police cars pulling up to the driveway. I hadn't even realized my neighbors had called them, probably alerted by the shouting and Beth's erratic behavior. In that moment, everything froze. Beth turned toward the flashing lights, her face twisted in shock, as if she hadn't thought it would go this far. Two officers stepped out of the car, their expressions calm but firm as they approached. "Ma'am, step away from him," one of them said, his voice authoritative. Beth's gaze flicked between them and me, the reality finally sinking in. "No. No, this isn't how it's supposed to go," she mumbled, her voice breaking. "I was supposed to," she didn't finish the sentence. She just collapsed onto the ground, sobbing, the weight of her lies, her desperation, finally crashing down around her. The officers gently but firmly guided her to the patrol car. As they escorted her away, I stood there, watching in silence, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Relief, sadness, and a strange, hollow emptiness. This wasn't how I imagined the end of our story, but in a way, it was the only way it could have ended. Beth's unraveling had led her here, to this final, desperate moment. And now, it was over. A week later, I sat in David's office, signing the final divorce papers. Beth had been served a restraining order, and she was facing charges for her erratic behavior that night. She wouldn't be able to come near me again. It was done, official, irreversible. The weight of everything pressed down on me, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. David handed me a pen, his voice calm. "You sure about this, John? Once you sign, there's no going back." I didn't hesitate. I signed the papers with a steady hand and pushed them across the desk. "I'm sure." He nodded, glancing down at the papers before looking back at me. "You've been through hell. But now you can move on. Move on." Those words felt strange, foreign, after everything. But he was right. I had to move forward. I had to leave the past behind, even if it still haunted me. As I left the office and stepped into the sunlight, I felt something shift inside me. The chapter with Beth was over. The chaos, the lies, the betrayal, they were all behind me now. And for the first time, I felt like I had control over my life again. It wasn't the ending I had imagined. But it was an ending nonetheless. And that was enough. In the end, I learned that some people will do anything to keep control, even when it means losing everything in the process. But I also learned that letting go is sometimes the only way to truly be free. And if you're ever in a situation like mine, don't wait. Don't let the lies fester, don't let the manipulation twist your reality. Walk away. Protect yourself. And never, ever let someone like Beth destroy you. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If you're dealing with betrayal, lies, or manipulation, just know, you're not alone. And there's always a way out.
Dad. Grandma left us. She said we were unnecessary baggage and just left us at the airport. My hands went cold. The Bluetooth in my truck echoed my son's shaking voice, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I pulled over on I-75, barely avoiding the guardrail, heart thudding like a war drum. "Wait, what? Where's your mother?" I asked, gripping the wheel like it could hold the world together. She was there, and then she left too. I stared out at the road ahead, mind reeling. That luxury vacation I paid for, the first-class getaway to Bora Bora that cost more than my college tuition, was supposed to be for family. My kids, my wife, her mother, and her sisters. I'd planned it down to the damn lounge menu. And now my children were standing in an airport terminal like lost luggage because my wife's mother decided they didn't match her aesthetic. I ended the call with my son, promised I'd get them picked up, and pulled up the airline app. Everything was booked under my Amex. Every villa, every jet, every gourmet reservation. With a few satisfying taps, I turned that dream vacation into a logistical nightmare. I canceled every reservation before the plane landed. Let her sip complimentary warm water instead of champagne. Let her explain to her Botoxed friends why they're stuck at a budget hotel near the airport. But while I stared at the cancellation screen, a notification pinged in. An email from the hotel's concierge confirming a romantic couples massage for Mrs. Madison Collins and Mr. Zayden Brooks. Zayden? I didn't know a damn Zayden. I clicked through. Couples dinners, Sunset Cabana experiences, and worst of all, matching spa robes for Madison and Zayden. She had the audacity to use our last name for him. I felt like I was watching someone else's life unravel in real time. But it was mine. I drove home on autopilot, eyes locked forward, but brain stuck on replay. My wife, Madison, giggling at her phone at 1 a.m. The sudden obsession with her yoga coach. The overnight wax appointments. That new red bikini she said she bought, just for us. Yes, I was just the wallet. By the time I pulled into the driveway, something in me had already cracked. I wasn't the same man who'd kissed Madison goodbye that morning. I was someone colder, sharper, less forgiving. I walked inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kids had been with Madison's mom, supposedly en route to paradise, and I was left with silence and the scent of her perfume lingering in the bedroom. I sat down on the edge of the bed. My hands were trembling, but not from sadness. No, this was a storm brewing. Something primal. Protective. Not just for me. For my sons. For the years I'd wasted building a life for a woman who saw her own children as disposable weight. I opened her laptop. No password. Rookie mistake. Within minutes, I found everything. Flirty emails to Zayden, saved selfies and lingerie she never wore for me, calendar invites labeled Pilates that were actually Airbnb links. The woman didn't even try to hide it. There were Venmo transactions to Zaybro with captions like, "For your time, handsome face-blowing kiss dot." My face flushed with a heat I hadn't felt since college football brawls. This wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. She thought she could screw around on my dime and leave my kids behind like forgotten baggage. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced. I planned. And when the clock struck 6 a.m., I brewed coffee, sat in our kitchen, and waited for her call. Or better yet, her excuse. She called at 6:47 a.m. I didn't answer. Let her sweat. Let her land to chaos and check her phone 1,000 times, wondering why her card isn't working, why the concierge says, "Sorry, ma'am, your husband canceled everything." Let her wonder what I know and what's coming next. Because this was no longer about just catching a cheater. This was about letting the liar taste the wreckage she created. This was about revenge. And it was only just beginning. She called again at 7:10, then 7:15, then 7:23. I sat at the kitchen island, sipping my black coffee slowly, deliberately, letting each ring echo through the house like a funeral bell. Her name flashed across the screen, Madison Red Heart. That little heart made me want to crush the phone in my hand. At 7:30, I finally picked up. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I wanted her to hear mine. "Where are the kids?" she asked immediately. No hello. No explanation. Just that clipped, cold tone she used whenever something inconvenienced her. "With me," I said, calm as stone. "Where you should have left them in the first place." "Oh my God, did my mom not?" she started, but I cut her off. "Save it. I talked to them. I know what happened. Your mother called my kids unnecessary baggage. Then she abandoned them. And you stood there and let it happen. That's not what it." "Don't lie to me, Madison." "Not this time." There was a beat of silence, just long enough for her to realize I wasn't playing her little game anymore. "I was going to call you." "No, you weren't. You were too busy playing house with Zayden." Dead silence. "Yeah, I said it. You think I don't know?" I continued. "Couples massage? Sunset dinners? Matching ropes? You gave him our last name. What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice, small now. "How did you?" "I own the card, Madison. The one you used to fund your romantic getaway. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You're not just a liar, you're a careless one." She started crying, that fake hiccup sob she used whenever she got caught. "It wasn't serious, I swear. It was just, he made me feel appreciated." I laughed. Out loud. A bitter, angry sound that surprised even me. "Appreciated? You had 2 kids with me. I gave you everything. You think Zayden would have taken you to Bora Bora on his salary? He's a part-time spin instructor. He listens to me. He understands me. Does he know you ditched your own children for a selfie in a 5-star tub?" More silence. I didn't expect an apology. Not from her. She wasn't built that way. Madison could fake tears like she could fake loyalty, effortlessly and without remorse. "You don't get to be the victim here," I said coldly. "You left our kids. You lied to me for months. You had the audacity to use my money to fund your little vacation fling. And worst of all, You thought I wouldn't find out. Her voice turned sharp, like claws. You think you're some kind of hero? You canceled everything? You embarrassed me in front of my family. You made me look like a fool. You did that all by yourself. She hissed into the phone like a cornered snake. You always act like the perfect dad, the perfect husband. But maybe if you weren't so obsessed with control, I wouldn't have needed someone else. That was it. That was the moment the last string snapped. I stood up, voice like ice. Madison, pack your things when you land. You're not coming back here. Not to me. Not to our kids. You can go be appreciated by Zayden in whatever cheap motel you end up in after this trip falls apart. You're serious? She snapped. You're really throwing everything away over a mistake? No. I'm saving what's left of my dignity. And then I hung up. I stood there in the silence of our kitchen, the sun creeping in through the blinds like nothing had happened. But everything had. My marriage was dead. Not dying dead. Cold. Rotted from the inside out. And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. I walked to my kids' room. They were still sleeping on the pull-out mattress, blankets tangled, faces innocent. They didn't deserve any of this. And I wouldn't let Madison hurt them again. The phone buzzed again. Another call from her. I blocked the number. Let her scream into the void. She made her choice. And I was done being her fool. By noon, her mother had called me 3 times from different numbers. Each time I let it go to voicemail. I knew what the messages would say even before I listened to them. Guilt-tripping, manipulation, fake concern wrapped in that condescending tone she always used when she talked to me like I was some glorified babysitter instead of her grandchildren's father. You're overreacting, Thomas, one message started. Kids can be difficult during travel, and Madison said she'd take care of everything. You don't need to make this into a federal case. She really said federal case. As if abandoning children at an international terminal was the same as forgetting a carry-on. Another voicemail came in from her sister, Lauren. Hey, Tom. I know you're mad, but this is family. Let's talk this out. Maddie's really upset. I deleted them all. This wasn't a family. It was a network of enablers, liars, and emotionally vacant women who played at being mothers and wives when it suited their Instagram aesthetics. When it came to showing up for real, they bailed. Around 2 p.m., I got an email from the hotel's reservation manager confirming that all services had been revoked due to an unauthorized cancellation. I replied quickly, just to twist the knife, fully authorized by the man paying for it. By 5 p.m., she messaged me from an unknown number. Just 3 words. You'll regret this. That was Madison. Always turning into the villain when she didn't get her way. No accountability. No remorse. Just venom and threats. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed out every piece of evidence I'd collected. Screenshots of texts, hotel confirmations, photos she sent to Zayden that she clearly thought would never see daylight. I didn't want them for court. I didn't even want revenge anymore. I wanted truth. I needed clarity. And then, for the first time since everything exploded, I sat with my kids on the couch. We watched a movie, The Incredibles, fittingly, and I hugged them tighter than I had in months. They didn't ask about their mom. Maybe they were afraid to. Maybe they already knew something wasn't right. Kids can feel fractures even when we pretend the walls are solid. The doorbell rang around 8 p.m. I opened the door expecting silence. But there she stood. Madison. Same flight I booked, apparently. Same Louis Vuitton suitcase I bought her last Christmas. Same crocodile tears. I just want to talk, she said. No hello. No. I'm sorry. Talk somewhere else. Tom, please. You've always been dramatic. No. I snapped. You've always been unfaithful. I was just too blinded by love to see it. She tried to step forward, but I didn't move. I wanted her to feel how unwelcome she was. I wanted her to understand the damage wasn't fixable. I made a mistake, she started. No, Madison. You made months of mistakes. You turned my love into your weapon. You turned our children into obstacles. You let your mother treat them like they didn't matter, and worse, you agreed with her. I was overwhelmed. So you found comfort in a 27-year-old spin instructor who calls himself Sabro? She went quiet. That was the first time she didn't have a snappy reply. You had choices, I said, lowering my voice, and you chose betrayal. Then I handed her a yellow envelope. She took it without looking, her face already twisting into that familiar mask of righteous indignation. What's this? Divorce papers. You're not sleeping in this house again. Not one more night. You'll hear from my lawyer tomorrow. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes welled up, but there was no apology in her stare. Just fury. Embarrassment. The bitterness of someone who just realized she burned down the mansion and thought she'd still get to keep the gold-plated bathtub. "You'll regret this," she repeated. "No, Madison," I said, voice like steel. I already regretted staying. And with that, I closed the door. Behind it, my kids laughed at some scene on TV. Real laughter. Warmth. Life. I leaned against the wood and let myself feel everything. The betrayal, the rage, the humiliation. But mostly, I felt relief. Because the lies were over. And I was finally free. The next morning was oddly calm. I woke up before the kids, made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, the usual stuff Madison always claimed she didn't have time for. I sat at the table, listening to the birds outside, and it hit me. The silence wasn't painful anymore. It was peace. I didn't have to brace for passive-aggressive comments, fake smiles, or the sound of her fingers furiously typing into someone else's DMs. The boys woke up one by one, rubbing their eyes and dragging their blankets to the kitchen. I ruffled their hair, poured cereal, and asked them if they wanted to go to the park later. They nodded sleepily. No mention of their mom. No questions. Just acceptance. I got a call from my lawyer mid-morning. Everything was in motion. He told me Madison had tried calling his office 3 times already, acting confused, asking if there had been some mistake. She even said she thought we were just taking a break to cool off. That woman had the audacity to think this was reversible. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about a break. This wasn't a lover's quarrel. She didn't just cheat on me, she humiliated me, used me, disrespected everything I'd built. She left her own children behind like afterthoughts and expected me to carry on like nothing happened. And I used to think she was the love of my life. Around 1 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Zayden. Not even kidding. He had the balls to call me. I let it go to voicemail, but the message played automatically on my screen. "Hey man, I know this is kinda awkward, but I just want to say I didn't mean to cause trouble. Maddie told me you guys were basically done, and that she was living in a toxic situation. I'm not that guy, man. I'm just..." I didn't know. I stared at the screen like it was a joke. Didn't know? So you're half naked in a resort with a married woman, and your only defense is she said it was fine? What are you, 12? I blocked the number. But it wasn't over. Madison started blowing up my inbox with long, rambling emails. The kind where every paragraph contradicted the one before it. One message claimed she only cheated because she felt neglected. The next said she never cheated, that it was all a misunderstanding. Then she blamed her mom. Then me. Then the pressures of motherhood. There was even one where she said maybe we could go to counseling and take a family trip to reconnect. The irony almost made me laugh. The woman who ditched our kids on a luxury vacation was now pitching therapy and bonding time. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She was unraveling on her own. 3 days after she returned, I got a call from her job. Apparently, she'd taken a leave of absence. Word had gotten around about the airport incident. Her mom's reputation took a hit too. Her bridge club, or whatever fake charity circle she was part of, started whispering. Good. Actions have consequences. It was time she learned that. That night, I took the kids to the same park where we used to do picnics when they were toddlers. I brought sandwiches, juice boxes, and a football. We ran. We laughed. We talked about school and dinosaurs and video games. And for the first time in a long time, they looked relaxed. Not tiptoeing around their mom's moods. Not scared of doing something wrong. Just being kids. On the way home, my youngest said, "Dad, are we gonna be okay now?" I didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, buddy. We're gonna be more than okay." And I meant it. Because I wasn't broken anymore. I was rebuilding. Without lies. Without manipulation. Without Madison. Let her chase spa days and half-baked boyfriends. Let her figure out who she is without me propping up her image. As for me, I had something more valuable than revenge. I had my kids. And I had clarity. A week later, she showed up at the house. No call, no warning. Just knocked on the door like we were still living in some twisted version of a sitcom where everything gets fixed in 30 minutes with a cheesy apology and a hug. I opened the door halfway. She looked like hell. No makeup, hair messy, and some oversized hoodie I didn't recognize. Probably Zayden's. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd finally started crying for herself. "I just want to talk," she said quietly. "You've said enough." She took a step closer, hand resting on the doorframe like she was trying to physically wedge herself back in. I missed the boys. Should have thought about that before leaving them at the airport like forgotten luggage. Her face twitched. I didn't know my mom would do that. "You were standing right there, Madison." Don't play dumb. Don't pretend you suddenly grew a conscience. She looked down, chewing the inside of her cheek. I made a mistake. No, you made decisions. Over and over again. Booking that massage, sending him those photos, telling my sons they weren't welcome on their own family trip. That wasn't one bad night. That was who you are. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she muttered. That was the part that always killed me, how easily she tried to minimize everything. Like her marriage was a drink she spilled on her dress. Like wiping it off made it fine. The kids are doing better, I said. School, routines, everything. They're laughing again. Eating better. Sleeping better. You know what that tells me? She didn't answer. They were walking on eggshells around you. And I didn't even see it until you were gone. Tears welled up, but I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I'd seen that show before. I'll never forgive myself, she whispered. I sighed. Madison, I believe you. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. I'm not doing this dance anymore. I don't trust you. And I'm not putting our kids in the blast radius of your chaos. I'll get better. I'm already going to therapy. I lost myself. No, you found someone else. Big difference. Silence. She stood there a while longer, waiting for something. A crack in my armor. A soft place to land. But there wasn't one left. I started to close the door. You'll get your chance to talk to the boys. Through the mediator. Until then, don't come here again. Her voice cracked as I shut the door. You used to love me. I paused, just long enough for her to hear me clearly through the crack in the door. I loved who you pretended to be. Click. Lock turned. Barrier up. And just like that, she was on the other side. I walked back into the living room. The boys were building something out of Legos, some spaceship with rocket boosters made of ketchup bottle caps. They didn't ask who was at the door. They didn't even glance up. And that told me everything I needed to know. They were finally healing. And so was I. 2 weeks passed. Madison didn't show up again, but the texts kept coming. Long ones, short ones, some angry, some pitiful. One of them just said, "Do you ever miss me?" I didn't respond to a single one. She'd become a ghost, still lingering around the edges, trying to haunt my peace, but with no real power anymore. That was over. She was over. The kids were settling in. The oldest, Ryan, started asking more questions. Not about the affair. I think he was too young to connect all the dots, but about her. Why she wasn't calling him. Why she didn't want to tuck him in at night anymore. I told him what he needed to know. She's figuring out some things, I said gently. And right now, we're keeping things calm. You've got me. That won't change. He nodded, but there was a sadness in his eyes that nearly broke me. It's one thing to get your own heart torn out, another to see your kid realize someone they love can let them down that badly. One evening, as we sat on the porch eating popsicles, Ryan asked, "Is Mom coming back?" I didn't lie. "No, buddy. She's not." He was quiet for a long moment, then looked up at me with wide, steady eyes. Good. That word hit harder than anything Madison had ever said. Good. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He was just relieved. Safe. Finally safe. That night, I sat in the garage and just stared at the wedding photo I hadn't thrown out yet. Madison in her designer dress, fake laughing like she was already somewhere else. Me, dumbly grinning, thinking I'd won something real. We looked happy. But now I couldn't look at it without seeing the truth hiding behind those smiles. I took it off the wall and laid it face down on the workbench. I didn't need reminders anymore. The next day, her lawyer emailed mine. She wanted negotiation. She thought the house was still on the table. She thought, somehow, she was entitled to share custody, part-time mom, full-time drama queen. My lawyer asked how I wanted to proceed. I said, we fight. Because this wasn't just about me. This was about Ryan and Luke. This was about keeping them in a home without games, without lies, without the emotional whiplash of Madison's moods and crocodile tears. Then came the bombshell. A friend of mine, Mike, an old college buddy, texted me a screenshot from Madison's new Instagram account. Private, but someone had leaked a few posts. There she was, standing in front of a yoga studio, holding hands with Zayden like they were prom dates. Caption said, "New beginnings. Real love." He healed me. Healed her? I laughed so hard I choked on my drink. That guy couldn't spell commitment if you tattooed it on his forehead. I knew his type, surfer boy vibes, no job stability, probably still lives off his mom's credit card. She left a marriage, a home, her kids for that. And she really thought she'd get sympathy? Let her have her fairy tale. The version where she's a misunderstood woman escaping a controlling husband and finding peace in the arms of a shirtless burnout. Let her live that dream. Because eventually, that dream will crack. Eventually, Zayden's charm will wear thin. He'll stop pretending to be interested in her Pinterest boards. He'll get bored. He'll cheat. Or she will. And when it all comes crashing down, she'll try to crawl back, thinking there's still a soft place to land. There won't be. I'm building something new now. It's not flashy. It's not full of filters and fake smiles. It's just real. Me and my boys. One night, Ryan hugged me tight before bed and whispered, "I like our house better now." I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered back, "Me too." But, me too. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. It was quicker than I expected. Maybe she got tired of pretending she had any real leverage. Maybe Zayden talked her into settling so they could start fresh without court drama. Whatever the reason, I didn't care. She walked away with a suitcase, a few designer bags, and half the bank account. I let her have it. Money I could earn again. Time, trust, peace of mind, those were harder to replace. The house was mine. Full custody, too. She could request supervised visits if she wanted to. So far, she hadn't. She hadn't seen the boys in over 10 weeks. Not a birthday call. Not a single message on Ryan's art project that got featured in the school newsletter. Nothing. It was like she vanished into that filtered fantasy life she always wanted. The influencer, the free spirit, the girl who chose happiness. The boys stopped asking about her. I didn't push the subject. But sometimes, I caught Ryan staring at old photos back when Madison still pretended to be a mother. He'd say nothing, just study her face like he was trying to figure out what he missed, what changed, why someone could just stop showing up. I knew that feeling. I got an email from a mutual friend around that time. Madison had started a blog. Of course she had. The first post was titled, "Reclaiming My Identity After a Toxic Marriage." She painted herself as the victim, said she lost her voice in a house full of expectations, that she was reborn through heartbreak. The woman who left her kids in an airport called herself reborn. I didn't respond to the email, didn't rage or send screenshots to friends. I just closed the tab and walked into the living room, where my sons were building a blanket fort big enough to survive a tornado. That was real. That was mine. A few nights later, I got a text from an unknown number. "Tell the boys I love them." No name. No apology. Just those words. It was her. I didn't need confirmation. But love? Love? Love doesn't abandon. Love doesn't lie, cheat, manipulate, and then run when the mask falls off. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I locked my phone, tossed it on the kitchen counter, and turned my full attention back to Ryan and Luke, who were yelling at each other about who broke the left side of the fort. I didn't tell them about the message. She didn't earn a place in this house anymore, not even through a screen. Weeks passed. The boys grew louder, stronger, happier. I started cooking again, real meals, not frozen pizza and takeout. I took them hiking. We went to a drive-in movie one Saturday and made a whole evening of it. Blankets, snacks, stories under the stars. I started sleeping again. Deep, dreamless sleep. No more waking up to cold beds and colder lies. One morning, I found Luke standing in the backyard, barefoot, watching the sky. "What are you doing, bud?" I asked. He pointed up. "I'm making a wish. On a cloud." He nodded. "I wished Mommy would stop being weird, and that you'd be happy forever." I crouched down next to him, heart twisting in a way I couldn't explain. "That's a pretty good wish." He looked up at me. "I don't think Mommy's gonna come back." "She's not," I said softly. He nodded, like he already knew. "Good. She was always mad." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I just wrapped my arms around him and held him tight. That night, when both boys were asleep, I sat alone on the porch. A beer in my hand, the cool breeze brushing against my skin. No chaos. No manipulation. No pretending. Just quiet. And healing. And me. Not broken. Just done being lied to. And finally free. 6 months after it all started, I stood in the hallway watching Ryan read a bedtime story to his little brother. They were both under the same blanket, flashlight glowing between them like they were camping in a world far away from everything Madison ever touched. Luke was half asleep, his head on Ryan's shoulder, and Ryan was reading slowly, careful to pronounce every word right. His voice was calm, steady. They looked happy. No, not just happy. Whole. I turned off the light when the story ended and kissed them both goodnight. As I pulled the door closed behind me, I didn't feel grief anymore. Or bitterness. or rage. I just felt done. Done with the pain. Done with the questions. Done carrying weight that wasn't mine to carry. Later that night, I opened my laptop and wrote a letter I'd never sent. To her. Not out of forgiveness. Just closure. Madison, you broke everything. And for a while, I blamed myself for letting you. But now I see it wasn't me. It was you. You made the choices. You told the lies. You left our children in an airport to chase some fantasy where you were the center of the universe. You thought love was a resource you could take and take without ever giving back. But love isn't an accessory. It's not a spa weekend or an escape plan. It's messy. It's real. It shows up when it's inconvenient. It holds your hand when you're drowning. It sacrifices. You never learned that. Zayden can keep his yoga mats and man buns. You'll need more than affirmations and smoothies to fix what's broken inside you. As for me, I survived. And I built something stronger. Not just for me, but for the boys. The ones you treated like noise. They're growing, thriving. Every day I see more light in their eyes. And every time they smile, I know I made the right choice. You lost us, Madison. And you won't get another chance. I didn't print it. Didn't save it. Just closed the tab and exhaled. In the morning, I packed lunches for school and added little notes to each bag. Proud of you. You're my hero. Today's going to be awesome. The boys smiled when they found them. That weekend, we went to the lake. I taught Ryan how to skip rocks. Luke tried to wrestle a goose. We got sunburned, ate too many sandwiches, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Not even the version of her I used to love. She was the storm. But I became the calm after it. And that was the real revenge. He was. Lying there half naked on my bed. His eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted. Cold. Lifeless. My wife, Claire, stood beside him in nothing but a silk robe, clutching a wine glass like she was hosting a damn dinner party. I wasn't supposed to be home. But fate doesn't send invitations. Darling, it's not what it looks like, she said, her voice calm, casual, like she was brushing off a spilled drink and not a corpse on our sheets. I stared at her. Not him, I didn't know. But her? That face? I knew every contour, every freckle. I just didn't recognize the woman wearing it. Let's rewind. 2 hours earlier, I was in a meeting when my neighbor, Steve, called me. There's an ambulance at your place, Ethan. Something serious. No more questions. I jumped in my car and raced home. Now, here I stood, surrounded by the flashing red and blue of first responders, in the suffocating scent of sweat, perfume, and betrayal. You came home early, Claire added, almost annoyed. I didn't expect you till 5. I didn't respond. My mind was burning with 1,000 questions, none of which I wanted answers to. What was his name? How long had this been going on? Did she bring him into our bed often? Did she even wash the sheets? But the real question wasn't for her. It was for me. How the hell did I not see this coming? Claire wasn't always like this. Or maybe she was, and I just didn't want to believe it. The late night workouts, the sudden gym obsession, the changed passwords. The way she used to kiss me and now just patted my back like I was a sick dog. And now here she was calm as ever, while EMTs checked the pulse of a man who'd just finished fooling around with my wife and apparently died doing it. How did he die? I asked one of the paramedics. Heart failure, probably. We'll know more after the autopsy. I turned back to Claire. How old was he? She shrugged. 20-something. That was her response. Not shame. Not grief. A shrug. I almost laughed. Almost. But my chest was too tight, and my hands too clenched. One of the officers asked if I needed to go to the station to answer questions. Claire cut in. No need. It's a private matter. I'll handle everything. She'll handle it. Like this was a hotel mix-up, not a death in our marital bed. I walked into the kitchen. I needed air, but the house felt like a coffin. I opened a drawer, pulled out the manila folder I'd been building in secret. Months of evidence. Emails. Photos. GPS logs. I had it all. I had just been waiting for the right moment. And this? Oh, this was the moment. She walked in behind me, sipping her wine. So now what? You gonna cry? Throw a tantrum? I dropped the folder on the table. Claire glanced at it, then smiled, as if I just handed her divorce papers wrapped in a bow. You were always such a planner, she said, swirling her wine. I said nothing, just stared at her. This woman I used to love. This woman who didn't even flinch when her lover dropped dead on our mattress. I hope he was worth it, I muttered. Claire leaned in and whispered, oh, That was it. That was the moment I stopped being her husband and started becoming her end. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Hell, she didn't even flinch when I said the words. I'm done, Claire. She just smirked like she'd won something. Finally, she said, pouring herself another glass of wine. I thought you'd never grow a spine. I swear, if I hadn't had months to prepare for this, I might have lost it right there. But this wasn't a surprise. This was the confirmation. The finale to a betrayal I'd sensed but never wanted to believe. I sat down at the table, the file of evidence between us like a loaded gun. She didn't even look nervous. You know, Claire said, taking a slow sip, you were never supposed to find out. But once you did, I actually felt relieved. Relieved? I repeated, stunned. Yeah, she said with a shrug. I hated pretending. Coming home, pretending to want you, faking those little bedtime routines. I deserved better. That hit like a brick to the chest. Claire walked over, leaned against the wall, her robe slipping slightly off one shoulder. She was performing now, like she always did. Always the star of her own twisted movie. So how many were there? I asked, keeping my voice flat. Does it matter? She replied. You weren't satisfying me emotionally, physically, mentally. You were just there. She looked me dead in the eyes and said it. You were just my safety net. That's when something inside me cracked, not with weakness, but with clarity. I had given everything to this woman, built a life, a future, gave her loyalty she never even asked for because I thought that's what love was. But she'd burned it all down for a cheap thrill with some guy who couldn't even last through one damn session. And she didn't care. You know what's funny? She said, walking around the table. You were always so proud of how stable you were. Like being predictable was some prize. But I needed excitement. Fire. You were oatmeal. I laughed, bitter and broken. So your solution was to bring fire into our home? Into our bed? Why not? She shot back. You stopped touching me like a woman. I started feeling like your roommate. And Brandon? He made me feel alive again. Until he died, I said, coldly. She paused. Just for a second. But even then, no remorse. Just annoyance. He was weak, she muttered. Too much energy drink and ego, not enough stamina. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. I felt like the walls were closing in. You don't even care that someone died here today. She tilted her head. Why should I? He's not my husband. Silence filled the room. She crossed her arms. So what now? You file for divorce? Tell all your little friends what a witch I am. No, I said, voice steady. I ruin you. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I picked up the folder and held it up. I've been documenting everything. Every lie. Every message. Every hotel you checked into while I was working overtime to pay off your car. Claire's smirk faltered for the first time. I'm not just leaving, I said. I'm taking the house. The accounts. And every last bit of your reputation. You don't walk away from this clean. She stepped closer, face tightening. You think anyone's going to care? You're the boring husband. I'm the victim. I'll cry a little. Say you were abusive or controlling. People will eat it up. I leaned in. Then I better make sure the truth comes out first. She didn't smile that time. This wasn't a love story. This was war. And she just realized she'd picked the wrong man to betray. The moment she realized I wasn't bluffing, just that brief flicker of doubt in her smug little smile, was the first real one I'd felt in years. Claire had built her kingdom on lies, manipulation, and fake smiles. But now, her throne was cracking. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. That terrified her more than any yelling ever could. She followed me as I walked upstairs to her bedroom. No, her playground. What are you going to do? Upload those pictures? Send messages to my clients? My boss? She said, trying to keep her voice level, but I could hear the edge. The panic bleeding through the confidence. I didn't respond. The room still reeked of cheap cologne, sweat, and betrayal. Her lover's body had just been zipped into a black bag an hour ago, and yet Claire was already trying to shift into survival mode. She knew how to manipulate the world. She'd done it with everyone, friends, coworkers, even her own mother. But me? She forgot I'd watched her for years. And I'd stopped loving her months ago. I'm not stupid, Ethan, she hissed. If you ruin me, I'd take you down with me. I turned slowly. Try me. We stared each other down. Two strangers who once said, I do. I opened the closet, grabbed a duffel bag, and started tossing in clothes. Not for me, for her. I wasn't leaving this house. She was. And I didn't care where she went. She could sleep in one of her gym bros' cars for all I cared. She folded her arms. You can't kick me out of the house. My name is on the deed. I tossed a pair of heels at her feet. Try living here when your bank account's frozen and your friends know exactly who you are. That shut her up. Finally, she sat on the edge of the bed, our bed, her legs crossed, pretending she still had control. But I could see the tension in her jaw, the grip on her wine glass. She was calculating now, searching for an angle. And then came the shift. Her voice softened. Ethan. I know I messed up. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Messed up? Claire, you turned our marriage into a reality show without telling me I was in it. She lowered her gaze. I felt invisible. Then you should have talked to me, I snapped. Not drag strangers into our home and let them screw you in my bed. I didn't mean to hurt you. Those words. That weak, lifeless line. Every liar's favorite fallback. I picked up her purse and dumped it onto the floor. Dozens of little receipts and scraps spilled out, including a motel keycard. Still warm. I already talked to my lawyer, I said. Everything's in motion. You're going to sign the divorce papers. You'll take nothing. You'll disappear. She stared at the keycard, then back at me. You think this makes you strong? No, I said. It makes me free. She stood slowly, wine glass still in hand. You're going to regret this. That's when I stepped in close. Real close. So she couldn't look away. No. You're going to regret ever thinking I was too weak to fight back. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then she threw the wine in my face. Red splashed down my shirt, staining everything. She smirked again, stepping back like she'd reclaimed some power. But what she didn't realize, that was the last move she'd ever get to make. I wiped my face and smiled, because I'd already made mine, and the fallout was coming fast. The wine dripped down my face, warm and sticky, but I didn't flinch. Claire expected me to lose it, scream, maybe throw something, but I gave her nothing. That scared her more than any explosion ever could. She stood there frozen, the glass still in her hand, waiting for my reaction. But the silence hit harder than any threat. You're not going to say anything? She finally asked. No, I said calmly, because I already said everything that mattered. Now, I act. Her jaw tightened. You're trying to scare me, but you can't. You won't do anything. I stepped aside and pointed at the open suitcase on the bed. Pack. She laughed. That cruel, arrogant laugh I used to mistake for confidence. You think I'm leaving? This is my house too. I wiped the wine from my face, tossed the towel onto the floor, and turned to her one last time. Not after tomorrow. The moment the court order hits, you're gone. And if you resist, I make every disgusting secret of yours public. Starting with Brandon. Then Michael. Then your boss. She stiffened. Yes, I knew about Michael, the guy she met on her so-called yoga retreats. And her boss? Let's just say she'd gotten more than a promotion during that conference in Chicago last year. Claire bit her lip. For the first time, I saw it. Real fear. Not because she cared about what she'd done, but because someone finally had enough power to turn her games against her. Who's going to believe you? She whispered. You think people will listen to the guy whose wife cheated? No, I said. They'll believe the screenshots, the videos, the bank statements, the receipts, the call logs. Her face went pale. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit play. Her voice filled the room. Loud. Clear. Moaning a name that definitely wasn't mine. Then laughing, breathless. Ethan thinks I'm out with the girls. What a loser. Claire lunged forward to grab the phone, but I stepped back. Don't, I warned, my voice low and firm. You can't claw your way out of this one. You're finished. She stood there breathing heavy, shaking with rage. You're going to ruin everything I built. No, Claire. You did that yourself. I'm just turning on the lights. She stood silent for a long moment. Then, like flipping a switch, she changed tones again. Voice soft. Eyes wide. The helpless little girl act. Ethan, we used to love each other. We can fix this. I raised an eyebrow. You mean I can forgive you while you keep lying and sneaking around? She stepped closer. Touched my chest. We can start over. I gently took her hand off me. You buried us the day you let another man die in our bed. Tears welled up in her eyes. But I didn't buy it. Not for a second. Claire only cried when it benefited her. I'll tell them it was all a misunderstanding, she tried. That he was just a friend. Save it. I cut her off. The police already have the report. The coroner knows it wasn't natural. The guy had *enough stimulants in his system to kill a horse. He didn't come here to talk about the weather. She turned and threw the wine glass at the wall. It shattered into 100 pieces. F***ku, Ethan, she screamed. You think you're better than me? No, I said, heading for the door. I'm just not a monster pretending to be a wife. As I walked out, I heard her scream behind me, something incoherent, maybe threats, maybe curses. I didn't care. Because now the real work began. The lawyer was ready. The evidence was lined up. The storm had started. And Claire? She had no idea how far she was about to fall. By the next morning, everything was in motion. Claire had stormed out late that night, slamming the door behind her, probably off to stay with one of the men she hadn't yet buried under shame. I didn't ask. I didn't care. For the first time in years, the house felt silent, not peaceful, but stripped of poison. I woke up early, made coffee like I always did, and sat in the kitchen staring at the divorce papers one last time before sending them to my lawyer. Every signature line was already marked. All the evidence, printed and digital, was securely backed up. Photos, texts, receipts, footage. I even had recordings of her phone calls. You learn to think ahead when you live with someone who smiles while stabbing you in the back. At 9 a.m., I made the first call. Her workplace. I didn't have to say much. Just send an anonymous tip, with a few attachments. The audio of her talking about how she seduced her boss to speed up the promotion was enough to make HR pause whatever they were doing. I didn't need her to get fired. I needed them to start looking at her differently, doubting her, pulling back from her fake charm. By noon, her social media accounts started looking quiet. Fewer likes. Comments drying up. The perfect little influencer image she built was cracking. A few anonymous profiles, mine, started leaking the truth in the comments. Nothing cruel. Just enough to sow seeds. Isn't this the chick who let a guy die in her house? Didn't she sleep with her boss for that job? Let the crowd do the rest. Claire lived for perception. She didn't care if her life was hell, as long as it looked perfect. So I didn't touch her physically, didn't shout, didn't stalk her. I strangled her with silence and truth. By 4 p.m., my lawyer called. She knows we filed. Good, I said. She already contacted a firm. She's fighting back. Let her. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about cleansing. About tearing out every poisonous root she planted in my life and burning it. Then, around 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. Claire. She wasn't wearing a robe or heels or perfume this time. Just jeans and a sweater. No makeup. Hair tied up like she didn't sleep. I opened the door slowly. Can we talk? She asked, voice unusually soft. I didn't move. About what? How many people you cheated on me with? How a man died inside my house while you were grinding on him? She swallowed. Her eyes looked tired. Please. Just 5 minutes. I let her in, not for her, but for closure. For me. She sat on the edge of the couch, the same one we picked out together 2 years ago. Back when I thought I knew who I married. I didn't love them, she said. You didn't love me either, I replied. She looked down. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just liked the idea of you. Of us. Honest, I muttered. Too bad it's 3 years too late. Claire's eyes filled with tears again. But they didn't hit me like they used to. They looked fake. Or empty. Or maybe I just seen too much. You can take the house, she whispered. The car. I don't care anymore. I nodded. I know. And the posts online, she added. You didn't have to do that. I didn't lie, I said. I never do. She stood slowly, eyes glossy. You're not the man I married. Good, I replied. That guy would have let you ruin him. She walked to the door, paused for a second. Ethan, what happens now? I looked her straight in the eyes. You disappear. I rebuild. That's what happens. She left. And this time? She didn't slam the door. The days after Claire left were a strange kind of quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet. But still. Still like the air right before a storm rips through. The kind of stillness that lets you finally hear your own thoughts and realize how much of yourself you lost in someone else's chaos. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't shattered. I was. But pain was just background noise now, drowned out by the adrenaline of taking control. The man I was 6 months ago would have begged her to stay, blamed himself, tried to fix what she destroyed. But he was gone. I had no room left for shame. Just clarity. The fallout began unfolding exactly as expected. Her job? On indefinite leave while HR investigated. Her boss, the same one she bragged about seducing, refused to even make eye contact with her in public after the audio leaked. I didn't expose everything, just enough to make people curious, skeptical, uncomfortable. Claire's perfect little Instagram world crumbled too. She went private. Removed comments. But it was too late. Screenshots were already circulating. Gossip had turned to wildfire. I kept tabs, not because I missed her, but because I needed to know how far she'd fall before she stopped pretending she could fly. And then one night, it happened. I was sitting on the patio, drinking whiskey alone, when I got a message from her mom. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. I always knew something was off. If you need anything, call me. Even her own mother had turned. That told me everything. Claire had built her world on charm, seduction, and lies. And when people finally saw what was underneath, there was nothing. Just a hollow, manipulative shell in a designer dress. And yet, she still wasn't done. 2 days later, I got served. She filed a counterclaim. Claimed emotional abuse. Accused me of isolating her. Said I'd been spying, controlling her movements, making her feel unsafe. It was laughable, if it wasn't so disgusting. The same woman who slept with a parade of men behind my back now painted herself as the victim. I met with my lawyer the next day. She's going for the sympathy card, he said. Trying to spin this into emotional warfare. She's good at playing the wounded wife. I handed him the flash drive. Then let's remind the court who the real manipulator is. Inside were recordings. Of her laughing with her friends about getting away with it. Of her mocking me. Of her discussing how to make false claims if I ever got in the way. My lawyer listened to 5 minutes before shaking his head. This will bury her. Good, I said. Because I wasn't fighting to win. I was fighting to end it. I wanted her lies to suffocate her. I wanted the world to see the truth without me ever having to raise my voice. No drama. No theatrics. Just evidence. Reality. Cold. Sharp. Unforgiving. That weekend, I got another message. This time from Brandon's sister. The dead guy. I know we don't know each other, but I want you to know what she did ruined our family. Brandon wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve to die like that. I'm so sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Claire's poison didn't just stain my life. It left bodies behind. I typed back, slowly. You have nothing to apologize for. He's not the only one who was fooled. I pressed send. Then I closed the chat. And for the first time in weeks, I realized. This story wasn't about her anymore. It was about what I would become after her. I sat in that courtroom and watched her walk in like she hadn't destroyed everything. Like the woman who let a man die in our bed wasn't the same one standing there in her polished beige blazer and crocodile tears. Claire played it well, she always did. A professional victim. All soft voice, stolen glances, and forced trembles. If I didn't know her, I might have believed her. But I did know her. I knew the tone she used when she lied. The way she bit her lip just before twisting a knife. The way she'd say, I never meant to hurt you, as if intent mattered when the blade was already buried. She painted a picture of herself as the neglected wife. Claimed I was cold. That I worked too much. That I stopped caring. That I made her feel invisible. Said she only looked elsewhere because I shut her out. No mention of the 6 men. No mention of Brandon's heart stopping mid-act in our bedroom. No mention of the motel receipts, the hotel charges, the voice messages where she laughed about how easy it was to play him. She called it an emotional prison. I called it gasoline, and I had a match. When it was my turn, I didn't shake. I didn't yell. I just handed over the drive. The judge plugged it in. Sat back. Pressed play. 5 minutes of audio. Claire's voice, raw, unfiltered, venomous. He's so boring. I could cheat on him right in front of his face, and he'd apologize for not being enough. Brandon passed out on top of me, total mood kill. I swear, if Ethan ever finds out, I'll just cry and say he was abusive. Men always fall for tears. The courtroom was silent. You could hear Claire's breathing hitch. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered something. Probably, what the hell did you do? I didn't look at her. Not once. Because she didn't deserve eye contact. She deserved indifference. Cold. Sharp. Precise. After the hearing, my lawyer patted my shoulder. You just won everything. And I had. The house. The accounts. The cars. She walked out of that room with nothing but her name, and even that was now covered in mud. But it wasn't the assets that mattered. It was the truth. Exposed. Unpolished. Undeniable. Claire didn't return to the house. She couldn't face it. Too many ghosts. Too much blood on the sheets, even if it wasn't visible anymore. I packed up what little she'd left behind, cheap perfume, fake designer shoes, a drawer full of promises she never meant to keep. I dumped it all in a box and left it on the porch. No note. No call. She texted me that night. You happy now? I didn't respond. The next morning, the box was gone. And just like that, she was a memory. But memories don't go quietly. For weeks after, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, half expecting to find her standing in the doorway, wearing that fake remorse like a mask. I'd walk into the kitchen and see flashes of her there, smiling while she plotted my downfall. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I felt free. Other days, I felt hollow. But every day, I felt stronger. I started rebuilding. The house. My routines. My sanity. The man who let Claire manipulate him was dead. In his place? Someone sharper. Wiser. Unapologetic. Someone who knew that love without respect was just slow destruction dressed up in affection. Claire tried to set fire to everything we had. And I let her burn it all. Because now I was standing in the ashes. And I was finally ready to build something better. 3 months passed. Not long in the grand scheme of things, but long enough for scars to start turning into armor. Long enough to breathe without tasting betrayal in the air. Long enough to look in the mirror and see myself again, not the man she broke, but the man who walked through the wreckage and came out on the other side sharper, harder, and clean. Claire vanished from my life the way a storm does, loud, destructive, and suddenly quiet. I never heard her name in the neighborhood again. People whispered, sure. There were rumors. Some said she moved in with a friend in another city. Others said she was trying to rebrand herself online. One guy told me he saw her at a bar a few towns over, drunk, alone, and screaming at a bartender. I didn't care. Whatever version of Claire still existed out there was no longer my concern. I had stopped bleeding over someone who wouldn't have spit on me if I were on fire. Instead, I started fixing the damage she left behind. I repainted the bedroom walls, the same ones I found her pressed against with another man. I donated all the furniture we'd picked out together. Burned our wedding photos. Threw away the box of anniversary cards I used to think meant something. I even replaced the mattress. That one felt personal. But the real healing came from the silence. No drama. No games. No second-guessing myself every time my phone buzzed. It was like my soul had been sleeping and finally woke up. And then, one night, it happened. I came home from work, kicked off my shoes, and found a letter on my doorstep. No name. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. I stood there for a long time before picking it up. Half of me wanted to toss it without reading. But the other half? Curious. I opened it. Ethan. You won. I know you did. You always were the better person, even when I didn't deserve it. Especially then. I could write 10 pages trying to explain why I did what I did, but the truth is, I don't even fully understand it myself. Maybe I wanted attention. Maybe I was empty inside and didn't know how to fill it. Maybe I just liked being wanted by people who didn't know me well enough to see who I really was. But you saw me, and I destroyed that. You didn't deserve what I did to you. Any of it. I thought I'd feel powerful taking control. Sleeping around. Being reckless. I thought I was teaching you a lesson. But all I did was burn down my own future. I hope you find someone who sees what I never appreciated. Someone who looks at you and knows they're lucky to have a man like that. I lost the only person who ever really loved me. I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed you to know I'm sorry. Claire. I stared at the letter for a long time. Not because it moved me, but because it didn't. There was a time when those words would have shattered me. When just one, I'm sorry, from her would have made me drop everything and hold her again. But not anymore. I folded the letter once, then twice, and dropped it into the trash. Sometimes closure doesn't come in conversations or apologies. Sometimes closure is silence. It's a locked door, a deleted number, a heart that no longer flinches at her name. Claire thought she could break me. She thought I'd chase her, beg her, crumble for her. But the truth? I needed her betrayal to finally become who I was always meant to be. This was never her story. It was mine. And now, it's over. I never thought the moment I'd lose everything would come with the sound of my wife crying for another man. We were in the kitchen. She was scrolling her phone when suddenly she dropped it like it was on fire. Her face went pale, then flushed. I hadn't seen her cry like that since her mother passed. But this wasn't about family. This was about him. Jason, she choked out, clutching her phone like it had oxygen in it. My ex. Matt. He was in a car accident. It's bad. He's in ICU. I blinked. Okay, I said slowly, trying to make sense of why she was reacting this way. Why are you crying like that? She didn't answer right away. Just stared past me, breathing fast. Then she whispered it, like it was tearing her apart. I need to be there. I still love him. Silence. Time stopped. My ears rang. My knees almost gave out. I stood there like some rejected background character in the story of my own life. I looked at her, my wife, the woman I thought had chosen me, and all I saw was a traitor in yoga pants. She didn't wait for my response. "Please," she said, grabbing my arm. "Jason, please drive me." I should have screamed, should have thrown something, but all I said was, "Get in the car." The entire drive to the hospital, she was wiping tears, biting her lip, whispering his name. Not mine. His. Matt. I didn't speak. Didn't even glance at her. My hands gripped the wheel like I could break it in half and shove the pieces into the mess that was my marriage. All I could think was, how long has this been going on? We pulled up to the hospital, and she jumped out before I even fully stopped. Ran inside like a woman possessed. Like her husband wasn't sitting outside, watching her sprint back to the love of her life. She didn't even look back. I sat there for 10 minutes. 15. Then I drove home. When I opened our apartment door, everything suddenly looked different. The photos on the wall weren't memories anymore. They were proof I'd been blind. Her perfume still hung in the air, sweet and sharp. I stared at our wedding photo. Her fake smile. My stupid grin. I almost laughed. Then I went into the bedroom and started packing. I didn't leave a dramatic note. Just scribbled one line on the back of a receipt. "Don't worry, he can have you now." That was it. I dropped the keys on the counter and walked out. That night, I got 17 missed calls. By morning, there were 37. By lunch, 84 unread messages. By midnight, 177. She was blowing up my phone like a lunatic. Voicemails full of sobbing. Texts like, "It wasn't like that, Jason. Please come back. You're misunderstanding everything. I need to explain. I messed up. It wasn't what you think. Come home. Please. I'm lost without you. I love you." I never stopped. I turned the phone off. And for the first time in years, I sat in silence. It didn't hurt yet. Not yet. But the storm was coming. And when it hit, I knew it would rip me apart. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. One of those places with flickering lights, thin walls, and the scent of old cigarette smoke baked into the curtains. It was the only place that didn't remind me of her. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her words looping in my head like a broken record. I still love him. Over and over again. I didn't cry. Not then. Something colder had taken over. A numbness. Like my brain refused to process the full weight of what just happened. At 3:17 a.m., I turned my phone back on. Her latest message popped up first. "I made a mistake." I panicked. "It's not what you think. Just talk to me." Then another. "He almost died. I needed closure. That's all." And then, "Please, I don't want to lose you too." Too late. The next day, I drove back to the apartment. Not to talk. Just to get the rest of my stuff. I didn't expect her to be there. She was. The door swung open before I could put the key in. Her hair was a mess. Eyes red and puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept good. She deserved worse. "You're here," she whispered like she'd just seen God. "I'm not staying," I said, stepping past her. "Wait, Jason, please." She blocked my way like her little body could stop a hurricane. I stared at her. "Why don't you go back to Matt?" Her lips trembled. "It wasn't like that." I didn't plan to say it. He was dying. I panicked. "We have a history." "No kidding," I said, throwing clothes into a duffel bag. "How long's it been going on?" She paused. "Long enough to confirm the worst." 6 months, she whispered. My hand stopped. I looked at her. 6 months. "It started after that fight we had in February," she mumbled. "I was hurt. You weren't around." My chest burned. "So instead of talking to me, you went back to the guy who used to cheat on you?" "He's changed," she snapped, then instantly regretted it. I laughed. An ugly, bitter sound. "Changed enough to blow up my marriage." "Don't say that. Please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall for him again. It just happened." "Didn't mean to?" I walked toward her, holding up my phone. 177 messages. "Ava, you had plenty of chances to mean something." She looked at me like a child who just broke a toy. "I don't love him. Not like I love you." "Oh? Is that why you ran into the hospital like a soldier on a mission? Didn't even look back?" "I could have died in the parking lot and you wouldn't have noticed." Her silence told me everything. "I thought you were my person," I said. "I really did. I was planning our anniversary trip when you were busy sneaking off to his place." "I never planned to leave you," she whispered, voice cracking. "But you already had," I replied. "You just didn't tell me." She started crying. Those dramatic, shoulder-shaking sobs she used to use when she wanted something. They didn't work this time. I saw right through them now. You want me to stay? I asked. Yes, she gasped. Then tell me you slept with him. She went dead quiet. Her eyes darted around like she was trying to find an answer that wouldn't make her look worse. I'm not doing this, I said, grabbing my bag. You lied to me in our own bed, Ava. Lied with his scent probably still on you. She flinched. I opened the door. She lunged forward, grabbing my arm. I'll end it with him. I swear. Just give me a chance to make this right. You ended it the second you chose him in front of me. I left. This time for good. Later that night, I got a picture message. It was her, standing outside our apartment building, makeup smeared, holding a sign that said, "Please come back." I blocked her and sat in silence again. This time, it hurt. The silence didn't last. That kind of quiet gets inside your skull, chews at your thoughts like termites on wood. I started remembering things, little things. The way she used to smile when her phone buzzed and she'd flip it face down. The sudden extra gym sessions. How she fell asleep early on Fridays, or how her phone was always on silent around me but lit up every 10 minutes. I hadn't seen it then. Or maybe I had, and just didn't want to admit it. One night, 3 weeks after I left, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then again. Same number. I answered. Jason, a man's voice said. Hesitant. Nervous. Yeah. Who's this? This is, Matt. I nearly crushed the phone in my hand. What the hell do you want? I just wanted to say I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was quiet. My jaw clenched. I didn't know she was married, he said quickly, like that excused him. Not at first. She told me you were separated. My blood ran cold. She said what? She said you'd been distant for months. That the marriage was falling apart, and you were basically done. I was pacing now, my heart pounding like a drum. She lied to you too, huh? Yeah, he admitted. Look, man, I just got out of the hospital and I'm trying to clean up my life. I told her it was over. She went crazy. Started showing up at my place. Screaming outside my building. I laughed bitterly. That's Ava. When she's done ruining one person, she tries to cling to the next. She needs help, man. No, I said. She needs consequences. He hung up. I sat on the floor in that crappy motel, holding my phone like it was radioactive. And all I could think was, she tried to flip the narrative. She tried to make me the villain in her story. I called my buddy Caleb, who'd always been blunt to a fault. I need a favor, I said. You still got that PI contact? 2 days later, I had a flash drive. I didn't even ask what was on it. Just opened the laptop and clicked play. There she was. My wife. At a bar. Laughing with Matt, then leading him by the hand into a car. Later, at his apartment door. Then another night, different clothes, same routine. Week after week. Like clockwork. But the one that broke me was her in our living room. Same couch we watched movies on, same blanket we used on cold nights. She was FaceTiming him. Lying sideways, biting her lip, giggling like a teenager. She even showed him the new underwear she bought, just for him. I closed the laptop. Sat very still. Then I threw it across the room. Something snapped in me. Not rage. Not sadness. Something deeper. Something final. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I want out. Fast, clean, permanent. I sent the divorce papers to her work, along with copies of the footage. No note. No explanation. Let her figure it out herself. Within hours, she called. Voicemail. Again. Then again. I listened to the first two. You sent that to my job? She screamed. Do you know how humiliating that was? Pause. Deep breath. You're doing this out of spite. I know you still love me, Jason. Don't throw everything away because of a few stupid mistakes. A few? I didn't even respond. Didn't need to. 3 days later, she showed up at my motel. I don't know how she found it, probably stalked Caleb. She knocked for 10 straight minutes. I opened the door. She looked desperate. Worn. Eyes like glass. I'm pregnant, she said, trembling. My heart stopped. And just like that, the game changed again. I stared at her for a solid 10 seconds, not a single thought forming. My brain was just white noise. Then the first thing that came out of my mouth was, whose is it? She didn't even blink. Yours. I laughed. Not a normal laugh. The kind of dry, stunned laugh that comes when reality slaps you so hard you forget how to breathe. Mine? After you've been playing mattress tag with your ex for 6 months, you expect me to believe that. It is yours, she snapped, pushing past me into the motel room. I didn't stop her. I didn't care anymore. Let her see how I lived now. In a cramped room with peeling wallpaper and a mattress that smelled like broken dreams. It was poetic. She turned around and faced me. I made a mistake. No, I cut her off. You made a choice. Repeatedly. Over and over. In beds. In cars. Probably in our house too, right? Don't talk to me about mistakes. You did this with your eyes wide open. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You said that the first time. And the second. How many times until it was what you meant? She stepped closer. I didn't come here to fight. I came here to fix this. Too late, I said flatly. There's no fixing what you broke. She blinked rapidly. I could tell she was trying to cry. But this time, the tears weren't coming easy. She used up her best performances already. I love you, she said. You love the idea of me. You love the stability. The man who paid your car note. The one who booked anniversaries while you were busy playing dress-up for Matt. You don't understand it. No, you don't understand. I don't want you anymore. And if the kid's mine, I'll handle it like a man. But I'll never be your husband again. She looked like I'd slapped her. Good. You don't get to torch everything and expect to walk through the ashes like it never happened. She sat down on the edge of the bed like her legs had given out. I was lonely. I felt invisible. I raised an eyebrow. So the solution was to crawl back into your ex's arms like a stray cat looking for scraps? You stopped paying attention to me. I felt my pulse rise. I worked 12-hour days so you could sit on your ass and post thirst traps. Forgive me for not applauding every new nail set and fake deep quote you posted on Instagram. Her face twisted. You were emotionally unavailable. I smirked. You were physically unavailable unless Matt called. Silence. She stood up, walked to the door, turned around slowly. You think you're better than me? I walked toward her, just close enough for her to feel the heat in my voice. No, I know I am. And deep down, so do you. She clenched her jaw, then stormed out. The door slammed behind her like an exclamation point on a life sentence. The second she was gone, I sat down, buried my face in my hands, and finally let it all hit me. Not the betrayal. Not the humiliation. The grief. I was mourning someone who wasn't even real. The woman I loved didn't exist. She was a character Ava played until the script no longer entertained her. And now, the mask had cracked. A few hours later, I texted Caleb, "Can you help me get a paternity test?" His reply was instant. Already called my guy. I'm on it. I stared at the screen, then tossed the phone on the bed. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. The test took a week. 7 days of silence, interrupted only by Ava's attempts to claw her way back into my life. New numbers. Emails. A burner Instagram account she made just to DM me. She kept saying the same things, like if she repeated the lies enough, they'd shapeshift into truth. It's yours, Jason. We were broken before it happened. I never stopped loving you. She didn't get it. I wasn't checking for love anymore. I was checking for DNA. When the call finally came, I was in the parking lot of the mechanic shop, getting my car serviced. Caleb had arranged everything through a private lab. Voice calm, the woman said, "We've confirmed the results. The probability of paternity is 0%. I didn't speak. I didn't thank her. I just ended the call and stared at my own reflection in the car window, trying to process the final nail in a coffin I didn't even want to bury. It wasn't mine. That should have felt like freedom. Should have made me laugh or scream or celebrate something. But all I felt was this deep, nauseating kind of relief that sat wrong in my chest. Because no matter what, I had believed. I tried. I trusted her. And she spat on it. I went back to the motel and cracked open a beer. The cheap kind, the one that tastes like regret and metal. Staring at the ceiling again, I realized I had no idea who I'd been sleeping next to all those nights. She'd kissed me with lips that spoke to someone else, held me with arms that wrapped around a lie, whispered my name while dreaming of him. 2 days after I got the results, Ava showed up again. I don't know how she kept finding me. Maybe Caleb was slipping. Or maybe she had that sixth sense toxic people develop, the kind that can smell a crack in your piece from a mile away. She knocked for 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Then I heard her voice through the door. I lied. I already knew. I stayed silent. It's not yours, she said. Matt found out too. He's not the father either. That got me. I opened the door. She stood there like a ghost, pale, trembling, mascara smudged like war paint. I don't know who it belongs to, she whispered. It was just once. After you and I fought that night in January. I went out with some friends. I got drunk. I don't even remember his name. There it was. The final confession. The dagger. Not even clean, rusted, twisted, slow to go in. I nodded. That's all I needed to hear. She reached out to touch me. Jason, I'm sorry. I've ruined everything. But I swear, I want to fix this. I stepped back. There's nothing left to fix. You burned it all. You don't understand it. I do. I cut in. You're a liar. And a coward. You can't be alone. So you swing from one man to the next like a vine in the jungle. And now you're standing here trying to reel me back in because you're scared. Not because you love me. She looked like I slapped her again. That's not true. It's exactly true. You didn't love me. You loved what I gave you. Safety. Stability. A warm bed while you kept one foot in the past and the other in someone else's sheets. She started crying. I didn't flinch. The tears didn't move me anymore. They were like special effects in a movie I'd already seen too many times. I want you to leave, I said quietly. Don't come back. Her voice cracked. Where will I go? That's not my problem anymore. She tried again. What if I lose the baby? I didn't even blink. Then maybe karma's cleaning up. She covered her mouth like she couldn't believe I said it. But I did. And I meant it. She turned, shaking, and walked away. I didn't watch her go. I didn't care this time. And for the first time since the night she ran into that hospital without looking back, I felt peace. 2 weeks passed. No knocks on the door. No fake tears. No anonymous texts or blocked number voicemails. Just quiet. I'd gotten a new place, small, but clean. It didn't carry the stink of betrayal. No traces of her perfume in the air. No framed lies on the wall. Just me, for blank walls, and a couch I actually picked out for myself. Freedom had a strange, unfamiliar flavor. Bitter at first, then strangely addictive. I started sleeping again. Not well, but without nightmares. Without waking up at 3 a.m. reaching for someone who wasn't really mine. Without the echo of, I still love him, gnawing at my soul. Then one night, Caleb showed up with 2 six-packs and a loaded silence. We sat on my balcony, watching the city lights blink like dying stars. He finally spoke. You good? Not really, I said. But I'm better. He nodded, cracked open a beer. She's been asking around. People. Friends. She thinks you're seeing someone. I smirked. Let her think it. He tilted his head. Are you? I shrugged. Not ready to open that door yet. Still cleaning up the mess from the last one. He didn't push it. Just sat beside me while we drank in the silence. That's the thing about real friends. They don't need to fill the air. They just sit with you until you can breathe again. The next day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring out. Then I got a message. Hi, this is Michelle. I'm Ava's sister. I know you probably don't want to hear anything from our family right now, but I thought you should know. Ava lost the baby. She's not doing well. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I turned off the phone and went to the gym. Not because I didn't feel something, I did. But because I knew better now. Feeling something didn't mean acting on it. Just because she was hurting didn't mean I had to be the bandage. She didn't get to burn me and then ask me to hold the match while she cried. Later that week, I saw her for the last time. It was accidental. I was grabbing coffee near my office, and there she was, Ava, sitting alone on a bench outside. Thinner, pale, like the guilt had started feeding on her. She saw me, stood up. I kept walking. She said nothing. Neither did I. And just like that, we passed each other like strangers. Like we'd never shared a bed, a life, 1,000 small moments that I once thought were real. That night, I finally opened the drawer where I'd shoved our wedding photo. I looked at it for a while. Then I tore it in half and tossed it in the trash. I wasn't bitter. Just done. People ask me sometimes now if I'd ever forgive her. My answer's always the same. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of what they did. But that doesn't mean you let them back in. I learned that the hard way. And if there's one thing I'd tell any man out there reading this, it's this. If she makes you feel like a placeholder in your own damn story, walk. Don't explain. Don't beg. Just walk. Because you'll never be enough for someone who's still searching for what they already had and threw away. No? I sleep fine. Because she's not in my bed. And I finally am. It's strange, the way life resets. You wake up one day and realize the person you once planned forever with was just a lesson in disguise. Not a soulmate. Not a partner. Just a mirror, showing you what happens when you ignore the red flags and call them roses. Ava was my breaking point. But she was also my turning point. After everything, after the lies, the betrayal, the chaos, I didn't just lose a wife. I lost the version of myself who tolerated less than he deserved, who mistook being the bigger person for being silent, who confused love with survival. Now, I don't love harder. I love smarter. I watch people's actions, not their excuses. I trust, but I verify. And I don't let pretty lies dressed in vulnerability walk into my life like they belong there. I've rebuilt. It took time. Therapy helped. So did long nights alone. When I finally faced all the stuff I'd buried beneath, we're just going through a rough patch. Turns out it wasn't a rough patch. It was a warning. One I didn't want to see. I started focusing on my work, my health, my peace. I traveled. I hiked alone for 3 days in Utah and stood at the edge of a cliff, wind in my face, realizing I'd never felt so whole. I stopped needing someone beside me to feel complete. Eventually, someone came along. Unexpected. No games. No drama. She didn't try to fix me. She just met me where I was and let me do the same. It felt quiet. Safe. Real. But this story isn't about her. It's about what came before. It's about the man who finally walked away when everything inside him screamed to stay. The man who learned that being loyal to someone who betrayed you isn't love, it's self-betrayal. So if you're reading this, and your gut's been whispering what your heart won't admit, listen. Because no amount of history, promises, or fake apologies can erase a simple truth. You deserve someone who chooses you. Every day. Especially when it's hard. Ava didn't. And that's okay. Because I finally did. The last time I thought about her, really thought about her, I was sitting on my balcony with a glass of scotch, watching the city settle into night. The lights flickered like embers, like everything was finally slowing down. That's what peace feels like. Not fireworks. Not revenge. Just stillness. A quiet soul. I never replied to any of her final messages. I didn't need closure from her. I gave it to myself. Some people will never understand the damage they do. And some won't care, even if they do. Ava was both. She lived in a world where consequences didn't apply until they finally did. And by the time reality caught up to her, I was already gone. There's power in walking away. In knowing you had the chance to go back, to try again, and choosing not to. Because sometimes, strength isn't in fighting for something. It's in letting it burn. She had my loyalty. She had my forgiveness. She had my future in the palm of her hand. And she threw it all away for someone who didn't even stay. But me? I stayed with myself. I rebuilt. And the man standing here now is nothing like the one she left behind. This man knows his worth. Knows that love without respect is just control. Knows that silence in a relationship is louder than any screaming match. So here's the real ending. I moved on. She didn't. And while she's out there chasing echoes, I'm living in clarity. Not everyone gets a second chance. And some people, they never deserved a first.